Chapter 240, Controlling the Giant Ship. This chapter is updated by Novels.pl. The two palm prints clashed together violently. Genuine chi spread and lightning flashed in all directions. Bam! Mew King shuddered as he felt a strong wave of power surge toward him from the youth's palm strike. It disrupted the flow of his genuine chi in his body and he involuntarily staggered backward. At the same time, Jiang Yuochen twisted his right hand and swung his sword. Unleashing the technique of Sacred Plenilune Sword, he slashed down toward Mew King's head. A dazzling arc of sword light, bright as a full moon, swept out in peremptory manner. Streaks of sword breath pooled together and winged their way toward Mew King's head. Wielding his fist with one hand and his sword with the other, this was the multitasking technique. It was as if Jiang Yuochen had divided himself in two, and became two top masters who attacked Mew King at the same time. You can multitask, but so can I. Mew King's cultivation had reached the heaven realm. His spiritual power naturally would be above level 20, so he could also use multitask. Snap! Left hand reaching over his waist, Mew King pulled out a golden line long whip. The instant the long whip was swung in the void space, it appeared as if a golden streak of light had flown out. It trembled violently and rumbling sounds of the blast exploded out. That golden wile was made by refining the 16 meridians of a Heaven Realm warrior. It was a level 7 genuine martial arms. The warrior's meridians would become tougher and tougher under the constant nurturing of the genuine chi. In particular, the meridians of the Heaven Realm warriors were unbelievably strong. Their meridians could not be destroyed with knife or fire, making them a wonderful material for refining weapon. The golden whip in Mew King's hands was made by a master of weapons refinement who had taken out 16 complete meridians from the body of a dead warrior of the Heaven Realm. He had braided the meridians together and carved inscriptions into it before refining it. Finally, it became a level 7 genuine martial arms. The golden whip was as fine as a single strand of hair and almost 3 feet in length. In the hands of a warrior of the Heaven Realm, it was sharper than a broadsword. A warrior would immediately get his neck cut off if the long whip came into contact with him. Swish! Mew King had mastered the whip technique. He could control the thin whip very well and it became very unpredictable and enigmatic in his hands, forcing Jiang Yuochen continued to retreat. Swish! A golden flash of light could be seen as the giant pine tree next to Jiang Yuochen was chopped apart by the whip. The tree crashed backward and landed on the ground with a loud thud, causing a flurry of snowflakes to fall from the leaves. The whip caught a corner of Jiang Yuochen's clothing and it fell apart within seconds. A scrap of white cloth fluttered loose and landed on the ground. Since he could not attack at a close range, he would have to fight from a distance. Animal spirits fixing arms. The spiritual blood in Jiang Yuochen's body surged out and dissolved into threads of blood. They wrapped around his body and pooled together to form the image of a 9-handled blood sword. Having reached the Earth Realm, the image of the blood sword had also become more solid. The 9 swords spun rapidly around Jiang Yuochen and emitted streaks of crimson sword breath. Swoosh! Jiang Yuochen pointed his finger out and the 9 swords immediately merged into a single streak of bloodlight which then flew toward Mew King's chest. The blood sword moved with the speed of lightning. Even with Mew King's speed, he would not be able to dodge it. His expression flickered and he immediately infused his genuine chi into a jade amulet hanging around his chest. The defensive inscriptions on the jade amulet were activated and a light shield of 3 meters long and half a meter thick appeared and hovered in front of him. Boom! The blood sword slammed into the light shield and pierced halfway through before the spiritual blood dissipated. The light shield also dissolved into threads of spiritual chi and gradually faded into the air. Mew King was rattled by the sight. The youth's spiritual blood was too strong. He could even condense it into the 9-handled blood sword. Luckily, he wore an amulet. Otherwise, he would have already died at the hands of Jiang Yuochen. It cost an enormous amount of silver coins to purchase an amulet, and it could only be used once. Mew King felt a pang of sorrow looking at the tarnished jade amulet on his chest. That had cost him 1/3 of his fortune to purchase. It's a pity he had an amulet. Jiang Yuochen shook his head gently. That had been such a great opportunity. but Mew King had managed to escape. Mew King knew he had misjudged the youth's strength. Worried that he might get himself into deeper waters, he immediately turned around and fled toward the Red Spider vessel. As long as he made it back to the Red Spider vessel, he would be able to draw upon the power of the vessel and easily kill the youth. Zhang Yuochen, of course, would not give him the chance to return to the Red Spider vessel. Activating all the genuine chi in his body, he formed the 100 to fire vision of heaven and earth. Phew! His genuine chi ignited and turned into a sea of fire that enclosed 100 meters in diameter, trapping Mew King in the flames. Break! Mew King struck out his palm to swiftly rip apart Zhang Yuochen's vision of heaven and earth. Then, he rushed out of the sea of flames. Just as he made his escape, a giant sword came slashing down and struck with unerring accuracy toward his head. How could it be so fast? No way. Mew King realized that the sword was not held in Zhang Yuochen's hands. Rather it came from the skies. Sword defending technique. Expression flickering, he immediately took a step to the right, hoping to dodge the strike. Puffed. Mew King did not completely dodge the strike. The Abyss Ancient Sword chopped down on his left shoulder and took off a huge chunk of flesh and even some bones. His left arm was almost completely cut off. Intense pain surged up from his arm to his body. Half of his body was numb. It was as if the pain was deep down to the bones. Bang, bang. Constantly changing its moves, the Abyss Ancient Sword had displayed more than 20 techniques in a row while hovering mid-air. Mew King was heavily encircled by the sword strikes and thus he had no chance to reboard the Red Spider vessel. Mew King wielded the golden whip in one hand and swung the whip rapidly to block the Abyss Ancient Sword's constant attack. A grim expression overtook his face as he fought hard against Zhang Yuochen. He deeply regretted underestimating the youth earlier. If he had known, he would have used the power of the Red Spider vessel and would not end up in such dire straits. Pengxiu, activate the Red Spider vessel array immediately, and lend me a hand. Mew King yelled loudly, sending the sound waves rippling through the air, calling out to one of the evil warriors aboard the Red Spider vessel. An attack array hovering in the void space to the left of the Red Spider vessel began to rotate slowly, creating a whirlpool which sucked in all the spiritual chi in the surrounding space. An extremely strong sense of dangerous aura spread out from above, making Zhang Yuochen felt a little suffocated. Zhang Yuochen made a snap decision and unleashed Shadow of the Royal Wind Dragon, which he had practiced to the Succeed level. His body rose 9 times in a row and his movements were as smooth as floating clouds and flowing water. Looking as if he were climbing a heavenly staircase, he landed on the deck of the Red Spider vessel. Kid, you have guts. Anxiety rose up in Mew King when he saw Zhang Yuochen boarded the Red Spider vessel and thus, he immediately chased after him. He mentally berated himself for miscalculating again. If he had known earlier, he should have activated the defense strategy on the Red Spider vessel. That way, no matter how strong the youth was, he would not be able to board the Red Spider vessel. However, the evil warriors waiting aboard the Red Spider vessel did not know that Mew King was unable to defeat the youth. Therefore, they did not activate the defense strategy. This gave Zhang Yuochen the opportunity he needed. Pengxiu, quickly activate the vessel defending formation to kill that youth. Mew King roared. Once he was on board, Zhang Yuochen glanced at Mew King who was chasing him and stretched out his arm to draw the Abyss Ancient Sword back to himself. He then rushed toward the control center of the Red Spider vessel. Pengxiu was standing in the control center. Having heard Mew King's voice, he was just preparing to activate the vessel defending formation. Suddenly, a shadow flashed past him and in an instant, a youth was already standing before him. Who are you? Pengxiu stared at the youth. Before he could finish his sentence, he saw the youth swung his sword toward him. Pengxiu was Mew King's trusted aide as well as a brave general. His cultivation had reached the completion of the Earth realm. He was preparing to execute a palm technique to counter Zhang Yuochen's sword attack. But before he could do so, his head was already sent flying off to the side, separated from his neck and landed on the ground. Zhang Yuochen struck out his palm to push Pengxiu's body out of the way. He then placed a hand in a sunken hole on the control panel and activated a number of spiritual crystals. The spiritual crystals inlaid on the Red Spider vessel emitted strands of spiritual chi which triggered the inscription of array. Boom! A huge array, hundreds of meters in diameter, was seen hovering over the red spider vessel while emitting a dazzling glow of light. Light chains were lowered down one after another, enveloping the red spider vessel completely. If one were to stand on the ground and look from a distance, he could only see a mass of dazzling light emanating from where the red spider vessel was located. It was like a miniature sun. Damn it. Having just caught up to Zhang Yuochen, Mew King raised his head to glance at the defense array above. He shivered in terror. He immediately turned tail and jumped off the vessel. Zhang Yuochen had already taken control of the red spider vessel and activated the vessel defending formation. If Mew King continued to stay on the red spider vessel, he would, without a doubt, die. If he could escape the red spider vessel, then he had a chance to live. What Mew King did not know was that Zhang Yuochen not only launched the vessel defending formation, he had also activated the defense strategy. Boom! Mew King crashed into the inscriptions of the defense strategy. A wall of light appeared before him and bounced him back. The sudden hard knock to the head made the dignified warrior of the Heaven Realm see stars. He almost fell to the ground as he stumbled around. Kid, I am going to kill you. Mew King gritted his teeth and charged toward the control center. Just as he charged 10 steps forward, the vessel defending formation had already formed over 20 lightning bolts, each as thick as the opening of a bowl. Almost as if 20-odd snakes were descending from the sky, they all fell onto Mew King. Boom! Mew King's body exploded instantaneously and a dense cloud of black smoke began to spread out from it. After the black smoke cleared, a broken skeleton fell to the ground with a loud thud. A golden whip was still held in the hands of the skeleton. When the poisonous spider club was creating the red spider vessel, they made sure to place the vessel defending formation in the most important location, fearing that it would fall into the hands of another warrior. Thus, even Mew King's cultivation could not stand against an attack from the vessel defending formation. Luckily there is the red spider vessel. Otherwise, killing Mew King would not be an easy task. Zhang Yuochen walked down from the control center and released Space Domain in order to investigate the entire red spider vessel. Mew King had rushed to rescue Hu Minggong and could not have brought many people. However, the red spider vessel was so huge that it was impossible to have only Mew King and Peng Shu on board. There had to be other evil warriors hiding in the ship warehouse. They had to be found to avoid unexpected events.